Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
So let's talk The Mandalorian Chapter 2, the Child episode. Spoilers. Let's talk about the spoilers that happened in this episode. And like I said in my previous video, there weren't too many to be had, but it was still a very interesting episode. It starts off, first 10 minutes had no dialogue, but you had some action in that time with some Trandoshans that jumped the Mandalorian. I believe there were 3 of them, and he took them all out. And it was a pretty nice, badass exchange. I really enjoyed not the stunts they had, but just the choreography that they had in the action. It wasn't too over the top. It's kind of interesting seeing Star Wars action without lightsabers, and I think they're doing pretty well with that. But in this interaction that he had with the Trandoshans, in this fight, he got cut really bad. And it wasn't awful, but he had a nice cut on his arm, and you constantly saw the Yoda little species baby that was, I guess we can just call him Baby Yoda. We saw Baby Yoda constantly try to heal, I assume heal, his wound. It just kept getting out of its crib, walking up to him and trying to put his hand on the Mandalorian's arm. And I thought that was kind of not only sweet, but just kind of interesting of like, what is this baby going to do? This 50-year-old baby, Baby Yoda, what is it going to do when it touches his arm? And we never really get to see that, but it builds some interest on what the abilities of this child is, even though this child is a lot older than I am. And then you also have what happens later when he's taking on that big rhino-looking thing. I can't remember the name of it, I'm sorry, but it is charging at the Mandalorian, and he's getting his ass kicked most of the fight. If not, I mean, he's about to die. He really pulls out his knife and is, I guess, going to do a, like, oh, this is it. I die for some stupid egg that the Jawas wanted. And the Baby Yoda stops it, lifts it with the Force. And this is where I think some people would have some problems with it. People complain that Rey is extremely overpowered without having any training, can lift all the rocks in the world, and Yoda was struggling with some in Episode 2. Well, in this one, the baby just lifts up the entire creature and sets it down. I was like, that's crazy. This baby's that powerful in the Force. I mean, it just blew my mind. And then you also had the Jawas that took the parts from the Mandalorian ship and wanted him to go get this egg in return for his parts. And that's kind of what led him to go take on this rhino creature, and discovering that the Baby Yoda could lift the rhino and everything. That was all really cool. And the Jawas were funny. Seeing him get on the sand crawler, work his way up, and kill a bunch of them, and then get to the very top, and they all had their little stun guns on him, shot him, and he fell. It was funny, and it was a nice little story and adventure that's just kind of fun and enjoyable to watch, and I like that aspect about this episode, at least for me. I know some people probably won't like it because it doesn't develop the story too much, but it does give you little tidbits about the baby. And as the Baby Yoda used the Force, he got very tired, and he took his little nap until the very end where he woke up. And that's where it gets interesting, is that I feel like the Mandalorian at the end of this episode is heading back to the planet to meet with the bounty hunter guild, and to give the client, the guy who paid him to go get this bounty to get the Baby Yoda, I think he's going to return Baby Yoda. And that's where the story is really going to start picking up for me. And it's nice that this whole story right now is centered around little Baby Yoda. I think that's very interesting. But other than that, there wasn't too many spoilers that were talked about in this episode. It wasn't too much in the story department. It was just a fun little action adventure that you went on with The Mandalorian. Pretty confident Episode 3 is going to be a lot different. Chapter 3 is going to be a lot different, and the rest of the season likely won't have such a simple narrative kind of episode like this one. But still, it's pretty simple. He gets his bounty, he tries to protect it, and some Jawas steals parts from his ship where he can't use it, and so he has to go back to his friend, the Ugnaught guy, and use his help to get the Jawas to get back his parts. And it happened, and it was nice seeing that montage of him and his friend, Mr. I Have Spoken. I like that he says that. It's the best part of the show so far. And they rebuild the ship, and it takes time. It's a nice little montage. I will admit, I wasn't a big fan of the editing on the montage. It was a bunch of fade in and fade outs, which, it's just simple editing, I guess, was my only problem with it. I was like, oh, that was kind of simple, you know, just not $10 million per episode kind of budget mindset that I would have. But other than that, I mean, it was a really good episode, and I enjoyed it for what it was, and I do look forward to what Chapter 3 is going to have. My only disappointing thing is that Chapter 3 is not for another week, which is great about this show, is because it's like, I want to see more, but damn, I gotta wait another week to see what happens. And at least we only had to wait 3 days for this past one, but still, it shows that this episode, this is doing its job not only on building up hype for the next one, but this series has caught at least my attention. I know a lot of people have looked at this very fondly, but for me, you guys know me, I'm not the biggest, hype train kind of guy where I'm always like, oh, I can't wait for Rise of Skywalker, I can't wait for the next Star Wars film or whatever. I'm pretty excited to see where this show goes, and I think episode 2 did its job on building up that excitement even more. So tell me your thoughts below. What did you think about The Mandalorian Chapter 2, The Child? Did you like it? Did you not? Leave your thoughts, comments, and concerns below. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see y'all next time, and may the Force be with you always.